Welcome occultists to new video. These stories may be triggering or graphic for some due to the subject matter. If you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Let's begin. Driving through the vast, arid stretches of rural Texas, I had always felt a sense of unease. The endless horizon, while beautiful, held a certain isolation that made you feel insignificant, alone in the face of an indifferent world. That feeling only intensified the night my car suffered a flat tire, miles away from civilization, the sun dipping below the horizon to welcome the reign of darkness. I was on my way to Marfa, seeking the solace of solitude and the charm of its art. But as fate would have it, I found myself stranded on a barely used road, my cell phone as dead as the silence that enveloped me. After several futile attempts to flag down the rare passing vehicle, I decided to seek help on foot. A faint light in the distance promised shelter, or at the very least, a phone I could use. As I approached what appeared to be a ranch, nestled awkwardly among twisted junipers and dry scrub, an unsettling feeling crept over me. The place was decrepit, its wooden structures groaning under the weight of years forgotten by time. Yet, it was the only sign of civilization in miles, and desperation drove me forward. The ranch was eerily silent, save for the occasional creak of wood and the distant howl of a coyote. I called out, hoping for an answer, but was met only by the echo of my own voice. The main house, a dilapidated two-story affair, seemed to watch me with windows like dark, empty eyes. A foul odor hit me as I approached the porch, a sickly sweet stench that made my stomach churn. I hesitated, the warning bells in my mind clanging furiously, but the need for help pushed me through the front door. Inside, the scene was one of chaos and neglect. Furniture lay overturned, dust coated every surface, and that horrid smell was stronger here. It was then that I heard a sound, a soft whimpering that seemed to come from the back of the house. Driven by a mix of concern and fear, I followed the noise, my heart pounding in my chest. The source was a room at the end of a long, dark hallway. Bracing myself, I pushed the door open, and the sight that greeted me was something out of a nightmare. Bodies, or what was left of them, were strewn about the room, their flesh torn and consumed, the marks of teeth visible on the bones. The whimpering came from a corner, where a figure was huddled, its back to me, feasting. I stifled a scream, horror rooting me to the spot as the figure turned, its face smeared with blood, eyes wild with a madness I could not comprehend. It was a man, or once had been, his humanity lost to a primal, cannibalistic hunger. I fled, terror lending speed to my legs as I ran from the house, from the ranch, and the nightmare it concealed. Behind me, I could hear the man giving chase, his guttural cries a chilling soundtrack to my desperate flight. I didn't stop running until I stumbled onto the road, my lungs burning and my mind reeling from what I had witnessed. By some miracle, a truck passed by, its driver stopping to offer help. I climbed in, not daring to look back, my tale pouring out in a torrent of words as we drove away. The driver, a local, listened in silence, his expression grim. When I finished, he spoke, his voice low and steady. "You're lucky to be alive. That ranch has been abandoned for years, ever since the family that owned it disappeared. Folks say they turned to unspeakable acts to survive a harsh winter. Seems they developed a taste for it. No one goes there, not anymore." I reported what I had seen to the authorities, but when they investigated, they found the ranch deserted, no sign of the man or the bodies. The ranch was declared off-limits, a cursed place that even the bravest souls dared not approach. I left Texas soon after, haunted by the memories of that night. The ranch and its horrors became the subject of whispers and warnings, a dark folktale that served as a cautionary tale against straying too far from the beaten path. As for me, I can never forget the eyes of the man at the ranch, the embodiment of madness and hunger. They haunt my dreams, a reminder of the night I wandered into a nightmare, a cannibal ranch hidden in the vast, unforgiving expanse of rural Texas. In the vast expanse of Texas, where the horizon stretches on forever and the sky swallows you whole, there lies a stretch of road so isolated, it feels like you've stepped into another world. I grew up hearing tales of this place, a strip of asphalt cutting through the desert, connecting one nowhere to another. They said it was cursed, haunted by the ghosts of those who had met their end along its desolate path. I always believed those stories were just that, stories. Until the murders began. It started with a drifter, found by a trucker taking a shortcut he'd soon regret. The man was dead, his body twisted and broken, left on the side of the road like discarded trash. The local sheriff's department wrote it off as a hit and run, a tragic but not uncommon occurrence on such a lonely stretch. But then there was another. And another. Each victim was found in a similar state, their bodies mutilated beyond recognition, the desert sand beneath them stained with blood. The community was in an uproar. People talked of a curse, of a vengeful spirit punishing those who dared to travel the road. But I didn't believe in curses. I believed in a human monster, one who used the isolation of the road as a cover for his heinous acts. My name is Eli, and I became obsessed with stopping him. I was a deputy in the neighboring county, young and full of that naive bravado that makes you think you're invincible. The murders consumed me, their brutality a challenge to my sense of justice. I pored over the case files, looking for patterns, for any clue that could lead me to the killer. The sheriff thought I was wasting my time, said it was a job for the state police. But I couldn't let it go. I started patrolling the road whenever I could, driving for hours under the relentless Texas sun, the endless expanse of desert on either side offering no answers. The road was always empty, a silent witness to the atrocities that had stained its blacktop red. Then, one evening as dusk painted the sky in shades of blood, I saw something. A pickup truck, old and beaten down, parked on the side of the road. My gut twisted with a mix of fear and anticipation. This was it, I could feel it in my bones. I approached the truck cautiously, my hand resting on the butt of my gun. The driver's side door was open, and inside I found a man, his face hidden in the shadows. "Sheriff's Department," I announced, trying to keep my voice steady. "Step out of the vehicle." The man complied, stepping into the fading light. He was average in every way, the kind of person you wouldn't look twice at. But his eyes were cold, devoid of any humanity. "I've been expecting you," he said, his voice a chilling calm that sent shivers down my spine. I arrested him on the spot, though for what, I wasn't exactly sure. I just knew he was the one, everything in me screamed it. Back at the station, he confessed without any prompting, a smile playing on his lips as he recounted each murder with disturbing detail. He spoke of the road as if it were a living thing, a partner in his crimes. He said it called to him, that it needed blood to quench its thirst. The trial was a media frenzy, the small-town courtroom packed with people hungry for a glimpse of the man dubbed the Desert Devil. He was found guilty, of course, and sentenced to death. But even as they led him away, he laughed, saying the road would never be satisfied, that it would call to another to continue its legacy. After the trial, I found myself drawn to the road, my patrol car cruising along its length as if on autopilot. The desert was silent, the peace deceptive. I could feel it, an undercurrent of something dark and hungry, waiting just beneath the surface. Weeks turned into months, and the memory of the murders began to fade, overtaken by the mundane realities of life. But the road never forgot. I started seeing things, shadows flitting just out of sight, whispers carried on the wind. I told myself it was stress, fatigue, anything but the truth. Then, on a night much like the one when I'd found the Desert Devil, it happened again. Another body, another life taken. The community was in shock, the old fears resurfacing with a vengeance. I felt it too, a tread so heavy it was almost suffocating. I went back to the road, parked my car in the same spot where I'd found him. The night was silent, the desert holding its breath. And as I sat there, the wind began to howl, a sound that seemed almost human. I realized then that the Desert Devil had been right. The road was alive, in a way we couldn't understand. It didn't matter who was behind the wheel, the bloodshed was its doing, the violence a sacrifice to some ancient, unfathomable hunger. I left Altenburg not long after, driven away by the fear that I might be the road's next chosen. I hear the whispers sometimes, in the dead of night, calling me back to that cursed stretch of asphalt. But I resist, knowing that some mysteries are best left unsolved, some roads best left untraveled. The murders remain a dark stain on the history of our town, a tale told in hushed tones to those who dare to ask. And the road the road waits, patient and insatiable, for the next soul brave or foolish enough to answer its call. I always believed college was supposed to be the time of my life, a whirlwind of freedom, learning, and new experiences. That's what drew me to Texas, the promise of adventure in a state known for its vast landscapes and vibrant culture. But what happened at that party transformed my perception of freedom into a terrifying ordeal that haunts me to this day. It was a warm Friday evening in September when my roommate, Cassie, convinced me to attend a party thrown by some seniors. "It's a rite of passage," she said, her excitement infectious. I hesitated, an uneasy feeling gnawing at my insides, but eventually, her persistence won out. I thought it was just nerves, the introvert in me dreading the social interaction. I couldn't have been more wrong. The party was in full swing when we arrived, the air thick with the sounds of laughter, music, and the clinking of cups. People were everywhere, crammed into a house too small to contain the exuberance of youth unbridled. Cassie was immediately swept away by a group of friends, leaving me to navigate the sea of strangers alone. I tried to relax, to let the rhythm of the music and the buzz of conversation ease my tension. That's when I saw him, a guy standing alone by the window, his gaze fixed on the crowd with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. He was older, not a student, his presence at the party out of place amidst the carefree revelry. Our eyes met, and I felt a jolt of fear, an instinctual warning that screamed at me to stay away. But then someone bumped into me, breaking the connection, and when I looked back, he was gone. The night wore on, a blur of faces and names I would never remember. I lost track of time, the party a living entity that pulsed and throbbed with energy. It was only when I went in search of Cassie that I realized something was terribly wrong. The atmosphere had shifted. The music still played, but the laughter had died, replaced by a tense, uneasy silence that rippled through the crowd. People were whispering, gathering in small groups, their faces pale and drawn. Cassie found me then, her eyes wide with fear. "There's a killer," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the music. "Someone's dead in the backyard." Panic set in, a cold, gripping terror that rooted me to the spot. It was impossible, a nightmare scenario that couldn't be real. But the sound of sirens in the distance and the sudden appearance of flashing lights outside shattered any hope that it was just a rumor. The crowd surged towards the exits, a tide of bodies desperate to escape the horror that had invaded our night of carefree abandon. Cassie and I were swept along, pushed and pulled until we spilled out onto the lawn, the night air cool against our skin. That's when I saw him again, the guy from the window, standing at the edge of the chaos, his gaze fixed on me with that same unsettling intensity. Everything in me screamed to run, to get as far away from him as possible, but I was paralyzed, caught in his stare as if hypnotized. The police arrived then, their commands cutting through the fog of fear that enveloped me. I was questioned, my account of the night a jumbled mess of half-remembered details and overwhelming emotion. They were searching for the killer, they said, a predator who had mingled with us, hidden in plain sight. I couldn't shake the feeling that the man by the window was involved, his presence at the party too coincidental, his interest in me too intense. But when I mentioned him to the police, they found no one matching his description, no trace of him among the chaos. The party was declared a crime scene, the night ending with the haunting image of a body bag being carried away, a stark reminder of the fragility of life. Cassie and I returned to our dorm in silence, the events of the evening a nightmare from which we could not awaken. In the days that followed, the campus was consumed by fear and speculation. The killer remained at large, his identity a mystery that haunted our every moment. I couldn't shake the image of the man by the window, his gaze a dark promise of danger lurking just beneath the surface. I became paranoid, jumping at shadows and the sound of footsteps behind me. I saw him everywhere, in every stranger's face, felt his eyes on me, watching, waiting. The fear was suffocating, a constant companion that whispered of death in the dark. The truth came out eventually, a tale so twisted it seemed born of the darkest corners of human nature. The man at the party, the one who had watched me with such intensity, was the killer. He had been stalking me, his fixation a silent threat that had gone unnoticed until it was almost too late. He was captured, his apartment a shrine to his obsession, filled with photos of me, notes detailing his plans. It was only by sheer luck that I had escaped his grasp that night, a twist of fate that had led the police to him before he could claim me as his next victim. The aftermath left me shattered, a shell of the person I once was. I left Texas, seeking solace and distance, but the shadows of that night followed me, a reminder of the horror that had walked beside me, unseen, unknown. The party, the murders, became a folk tale, a cautionary story whispered on campus, a dark reminder of the evil that can hide behind a friendly smile, in the heart of a stranger. And I, the girl who survived, became a legend of my own, a living testament to the terror that had descended upon our town that fateful night.